Imagine a world where you can't turn anything off. Your car engine runs forever. Your toaster never stops toasting. Your phone alarm screams into eternity. This is the nightmare we've been living in for the past 5 videos. Every circuit we've built, always on. The moment you connect the battery, the electrons start flowing and they don't stop until the battery dies or something catches fire. To turn something off, you'd have to physically rip the wires apart. And to turn it back on, reconnect them like some kind of medieval savage. But what if, and hear me out, what if we could control the flow of electrons without destroying the circuit? What if we could choose when the power flows and when it doesn't? What if we could play God? Today, we learn the most powerful component in electronics, not because it's complex, but because it gives us dominion over the electron realm. Today, we learn about the switch. Here's the fundamental truth of electricity. Electrons need a complete loop to flow, a circuit, a circle, an unbroken path from the battery's negative terminal through your components and back to positive. But if there's even a tiny gap, even a millimeter of air, the electrons stop. Because air is an insulator. It's an impassable canyon, a void of doom. This is called an open circuit. No flow, no current, no work being done, just a bunch of unemployed electrons standing around complaining. A switch is simply a mechanical drawbridge that spans this gap. When it's closed, the bridge comes down and the electrons can march across and do their job. When the switch is open, the bridge goes up and the flow stops. The LED turns off. The motor stops spinning. Peace returns to the kingdom. That's it. That's the entire mechanism. A tiny piece of metal that either touches another piece of metal or doesn't. And yet, this simple action gives you complete control over the flow of electricity. Now, engineers, being engineers, couldn't just call it the simple switch. No, they had to create an alphabet soup of terrifying acronyms. Don't worry, we only need to understand 2 of them, and they're actually not that scary once you realize it's all just describing how many bridges you're lowering at once. SPST, single pole, single throw. That's a fancy way of saying 1 input, 1 output, and 1 bridge. This is your standard light switch. Power comes in one side, switch decides if it goes out the other side. Basic. Vanilla, the entry-level drug of switching. Then we have DP/DT, double pole, double throw. This sounds complicated, but it's just 2 SPST switches that flip at the exact same time, controlled by the same lever. Why would you need this? Maybe you're switching 2 separate circuits at once, or you're doing something fancy like reversing polarity. The point is, 1 action, 2 simultaneous switches. There are other types, SPDT, DPST, and nightmare fuel like 4P3T. But honestly, for 90% of what you'll ever do, you just need to know, does it switch one thing or multiple things? Now we need to talk about commitment, not relationship commitment, circuit commitment. Specifically, does your switch stay in position or does it spring back? A latching switch, like your standard light switch, stays wherever you put it. You flip it on, walk away, and it remains on. You flip it off, it stays off. Set it and forget it. This is the lazy man's switch. You make a decision once, and the switch remembers it forever or until you change your mind. A momentary switch, like a doorbell or keyboard key, only works while you're actively holding it. The moment you let go, it springs back to the off position. Imagine if your light switch was momentary. You'd have to stand there like an idiot, holding the switch against the wall just to keep the room lit. But momentary switches have their place. Car horns? Momentary. Computer power buttons? Often momentary. Arcade buttons? Definitely momentary, unless you want Pac-Man to walk into a wall forever. So, latching for things that should stay on, momentary for temporary actions. Choose wisely or suffer the consequences of bad UX. Alright? This is the moment. We're building our first complete, controllable circuit. The one that started this whole journey. The circuit that separates humans from animals. Here's what we need. The battery provides the voltage. The resistor protects the LED. The LED produces light. And the switch gives us dominion. The circuit is simple. Battery positive terminal to one side of the switch. Other side of the switch to the resistor. Resistor to the LED's long leg. LED's short leg back to battery negative. A loop. A perfect loop. And now, the moment of truth. The switch is open. The circuit is incomplete. The LED is dark. We hover our finger over the switch and we flip it light. Controlled light. Not an explosion. Not magic smoke. Just perfect, deliberate, controllable illumination. This is peak human achievement. We flip the switch off. The LED dies. We flip it on again. The LED lives. Off. On. Off. On. We are playing God with the electrons, and it feels incredible. Congratulations! You now wield the power of manual control. You can close the circuit. You can open it. You are the master of the electron realm. But here's the thing. Flipping switches with your fingers? That's peasant work. That's manual labor. What if we could build a switch that is controlled by electricity itself? What if we could make electricity control other electricity? What if we could build circuits that make decisions without human intervention? Next time, we meet the tiny tyrant that runs the modern world, the microscopic dictator, the component that made computers possible. We're talking about the transistor. Until then, respect the switch, master the loop, and remember, if you close the circuit without the resistor, the LED will still explode and release the magic smoke. Subscribe, or we'll replace all your light switches with momentary buttons.